pestilences, and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
The fulfillment of Bible prophecy is on the march with ever-increasing speed. If we don't know the prophecies, it is easy to be unaware of what is happening around us. In this end-time segment, we see more prophetic fulfillment than any other era since the history of man began. On today's edition of End of the Age, we will discuss several of the major prophecies for our times and demonstrate that they are presently being fulfilled. It's so amazing to me when I receive the news that comes toward me every single day, and story after story after story pertain directly to the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. And I think to myself, how can anybody miss this? We are watching the major prophecies being fulfilled on a daily basis throughout our news. So how do people miss it then? It's because they don't know what the major prophecies are. They're not familiar with what the Bible foretells for this time that we call the end time. Now, we want to make sure that you have these prophecies at your fingertips so that you can know what the Bible prophesies. I'm not talking about obscure prophecies. I'm talking about major prophecies that are coming to pass right now. All right. Well, let's dive right in today, because when we talk about prophecies that are presently on the march, this article came to me. It came to me just this week. German finance minister says the euro is irreversible. Now, let's pause a moment. You know the euro is the new money that was created by the European Union in order to put all of the nations of Europe, as they have merged together into the United States of Europe, to put all of them on a single form of money. That's what really ties a federation together. Here's the remark. The euro is irreversible. German finance minister Olaf Scholz said in a newspaper interview to be published on Saturday, when asked if the single currency will still be there in 10 years. Yes, the euro is irreversible, Scholz told the Rheinische Post. It secures our common future in Europe. He added that an initial blueprint to strengthen the Eurozone agreed between Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Emmanuel Macron during talks at the Meseberg retreat outside Berlin this week would shield the euro from crisis. With the Meseberg agreements, we are further building, listen to it, the House of Europe. We have a new momentum in Europe, and this is thanks to President Macron. Speaking of President Emmanuel Macron of France. So Macron has burst upon the world scene when most other leaders of the nations of Europe were retreating and being somewhat apologetic for the European Union, which is nothing more than a federation in the making. They actually have their own constitution. They now have their own president. They now have their own foreign minister. They now have their own parliament. It is in a virtual United States of Europe. In Bible prophecy, it's the rebirth of the Holy Roman Empire. Well, Macron, everybody else was apologizing as Britain had voted to get out of the European Union. Macron comes on the world scene and says, hold it, wrong concept. This is not time to apologize. This is time to reverse and make it stronger and more powerful. We need to go ahead and fulfill the dream of the European Union. Well, that in fact is what has happened. Now Macron, who by the way, his first name is Emmanuel, which scares me a little bit because the word Emmanuel in the Bible means God with us. So God with us, Macron, scares me, especially since the Bible says in 2 Thessalonians chapter number 2, verse 3 and 4, that the Antichrist will stand in the temple of God claiming to be God. Now, please don't misunderstand me. I am not suggesting Macron is the Antichrist. I am suggesting the Antichrist will come out of Europe and he can't be eliminated. but he certainly is not being identified either. Just something to watch. Nevertheless, now the euro is becoming stronger than ever. Europe is becoming stronger than ever. And the Bible teaches that the United Europe is going to be the biggest power of the end time just before the second coming of Jesus. You know, it was so interesting. Before our last tour, I told everybody there, now, you're going to be our first group that goes to Jerusalem now that the United States has recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. First time that's happened since the nation was reborn. Well, those of you that are going with us October the 25th, you're going to be the first group that will be there now that the U.S. Embassy has been moved to Jerusalem. And I can't guarantee you that you will not be the first group after the signing of a Middle East peace agreement. Now, that's not a prediction, so please hear me carefully. I cannot tell you there will be a peace deal signed by October 25th, but I can tell you they're working on it, and they're really working on it right now. We're going to be telling you a lot about that. But today, what are we doing? We're talking about major prophecies. The first one we referred to was the unification of Europe. The Bible prophesies that the Holy Roman Empire would be reborn and the center of world power would be there right before the second coming of Jesus Christ. The Bible also teaches the Antichrist and his religious partner, the false prophet, will come out of the European Union, or what's called in the Bible the Holy Roman Empire. So this article that just appeared saying, oh, the euro is here to stay. That's a person speaking, saying that between France and Germany, they together are driving the path for the unification of Europe. And what they really are driving is the prophetic fulfillment of the last day resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire. Now, the Holy Roman Empire is already resurrected, but it has not come to its full strength. Before the second coming of Jesus, the center for world power will swing away from the United States of America and swing into Europe, and that's where the Antichrist, the false prophet, will come from. Another one of the major prophecies we have, which we talk about a lot on this program, is that there's going to be a Middle East peace agreement signed. And when this agreement is signed, it marks the beginning of the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus. Think about that. A prophecy with a date on it. Doesn't it sort of frustrate you sometimes? We've got all these prophecies. Well, when's it going to happen? Well, I can't tell you for sure. That's what we have to say because the Bible doesn't tell us for sure. That's not true with this prophecy. With this prophecy, it specifically says that when this peace agreement is signed, it will trigger the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon. Now, a lot of people get so concerned when you act like you can really know something about the prophecies of the Bible and their timing. But you know, we really shouldn't be upset like that, because at the first coming of Jesus, there were people close to him that knew who he was. They knew who he was the day he was born. They knew when his forerunner, John the Baptist, was born. And then as he ministered, even though most of the world did not know him, yet those people that were close to him, they said, we have walked with him. We have touched him. We have fellowshiped with him. He has taught us. So they understood that they themselves had rubbed shoulders with the Messiah himself. So why should we think it's strange to believe that there will be those walking with the Lord that will understand the time of the second coming? I know the Bible says, no man knoweth the day nor the hour, but it also says, this generation that sees these certain things shall not pass until everything is fulfilled. So perhaps we won't know the exact day, hour, and minute, but it is given to us, the Bible says, to know the times and the seasons. Well, this prophecy talks about a Middle East peace agreement. President Trump, before he actually became the president, said that he would like to do the deal that can't be done. He calls it the ultimate deal. He's also referred to it as the deal of the century. Well, he's been working on it now ever since he took office. But now then, the pace is accelerating. This particular story came out just today in Israel National News. It states that Egypt is drafting an agreement between Israel and Hamas. Now, you know Hamas has been a bitter enemy of Israel. Hamas rules Gaza in the south. Fatah and Mahmoud Abbas rules the West Bank, the area called the Palestinian area. But Hamas is the one that says we'll never make peace with Israel. Well, now then, apparently Egypt, behind the scenes, is quietly working out an agreement. Let me give you a little bit of details. A new report by Lebanese newspaper Al Akbar claimed that Egypt is drafting an internationally supported agreement. Internationally supported, think about that. Agreement between Israel and Hamas. The report said the agreement includes a prisoner swap, economic improvement in Gaza, and a long-term ceasefire during which the siege on Gaza will be lifted. It also includes a sea route between Gaza and Cyprus, which will be internationally supervised. So what's this all about? Well, there's a peace deal coming. And the hardest part of that peace deal is Gaza, because Gaza says we do not recognize Israel's right to exist. It's in their charter that one of their goals is to destroy Israel. And yet, the teachings of Muhammad tell them they can make what is called a hudna, or a temporary long-term truce. It looks like that's what they're doing. And notice that Egypt, a Muslim country, is helping to negotiate this deal between Gaza, between Hamas and Israel. So this is just reported in the news today. A major thing that has to be settled before we can get a peace deal. Now, here's another article. Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law, says U.S. plan will be public if Abbas doesn't come back to the table. Ever since President Trump said we're recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and we're moving our embassy there, Abbas said we're out. You're not an impartial arbiter. Therefore, we're not going to talk to you anymore. And he hasn't, not for the last 7 months now or 8. So there's nobody to negotiate with. Now Kushner's saying, if you don't want to come back to the table, we're going to make our peace plan public anyway, because the concept is if we can get Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Egypt to all agree on this peace plan, those are all the Arab states that surround the Palestinian area, and Israel agrees, then the Palestinians will really be drugging along, kicking and screaming. Here's what the article had to say. Washington is willing to engage with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas if he returns to negotiations, but if he's not willing, the U.S. will likely air its long-awaited blueprint for peace publicly. Jared Kushner said in a rare interview published Sunday in a Palestinian newspaper. Then, listen to what else Kushner said to the Palestinians. Don't allow your grandfather's conflict to determine your children's future. Did you get that? He's saying, Abbas, why do you keep fighting the same battles? You've been saying the exact same thing for 25 years, and has it got you anywhere? No, your conditions have just worsened. It hasn't got you peace. Now, this article appeared in Israel National News on the 24th of this month. Trump peace plan delayed as Jordan balks at replacing the PLO. Jordan replacing the PLO? Apparently the peace plan is saying if Mahmoud Abbas doesn't want to participate, then Jordan, you're the one that occupied the Palestinian territory from 1949 to 1967. So maybe you should just rule it. 70% of your empire is Palestinian anyway. So already you're over the Palestinians. Let's just have one Palestinian state. We'll take some of the territory known as the West Bank. But now Jordan is balking at replacing the PLO. Will King Abdullah of Jordan forever balk at that? Listen to the article. President Trump's long-awaited plan on ending the Arab-Israeli conflict will be further delayed following a flurry of diplomatic activity over the past week. Now, remember, King Abdullah of Jordan was in Washington, D.C., visiting President Trump at the White House on Monday. So they've had a flurry of diplomatic activity. Critical to the success of Trump's plan will involve replacing the Palestine Liberation Organization. So they're discussing in President Trump's plan, if the PLO doesn't come to the table, we'll just shun them aside. We'll replace them because the international community funds them anyway. So we'll replace them as Israel's negotiating partner as it has been over the last 25 years. The PLO, administratively known as the Palestinian Authority, has cut its own throat by making it very clear it will have nothing to do with anything Trump proposes. The Russian president, who last invited Netanyahu to Moscow to stand alongside him at the annual Victory Day parade marking the victory over Nazi Germany, has been trying since 2008 to host a summit between Israeli and Palestinian leaders. Now then you've got Mahmoud Abbas saying, I'm not going to meet with Trump, but he would really like for the presiding over the peace talks to switch from the United States to Moscow, because Russia has traditionally been on the Arab side. So now they're trying to shift this whole deal. Where's all this going to lead? Well, there's a very good chance that more than one person or one nation will end up leading the peace talks. Maybe it's going to be a coalition between Russia and the United States. I mean, after all, the world's two superpowers, the two nuclear superpowers. And I just read this morning that President Trump is planning a summit with Vladimir Putin. And these are big thinkers. These guys move quick. So could it be that Trump and Putin will meet together and agree to co-host the peace talks and finally get a peace deal done? Now, why is this so important prophetically? Because the Bible teaches that the Antichrist is going to come out of a union which will include Russia. And it also prophesies that Russia, along with Iran and Turkey, will invade Israel at the time of the Battle of Armageddon. So all these agreements they're making are going to lead us to war. They're going to lead to the Battle of Armageddon. So all this is tying together. I'm talking about you and I are watching the prophecies, not this year or this month, this week. These stories are hitting this week, showing that prophecy and its fulfillment is on the march. Our next article deals with world government. The Bible prophesies a world government will be formed. And the world government formation is a prelude to the Battle of Armageddon. Now, this opened the door for entering into Syria a second time of Iraqi Shiite militias under the command of Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Here's what's happened. The troops over the top of Iraq are moving down to capture an area that will open the gates for Iran. Iran is coveting a land bridge from Iran all the way to the Mediterranean because Iran has dreams of grandeur. I mean, they remember their history back when the Medes and the Persians ruled the world. Well, the Persians are the Iranians. So they still think of themselves in these big power terms. The article goes on to say their previous attempt to cross over on June 17-18 was hammered by the Israeli Air Force, compelling the Iraqi militiamen to pull back. If the Syrian army's claim to have seized Post 400 is borne out, then Syria can offer Iran another opportunity for opening up a land bridge from Tehran through Iraq to the Mediterranean, and so reverse the effect of the former Israeli action. Now remember, Israel has said, we're never going to allow you to have a land bridge because Iran has threatened to destroy the nation of Israel, and therefore Iran moved troops into Syria during the last 8 years of the Syrian civil war. But now then they're wanting to keep their troops and their military bases there. And Israel says, we will not accept this. You have openly claimed you're going to destroy the nation of Israel. You're an existential threat to us, and therefore we're fighting against you. So here these stories are. emerging right now, this week, about this new advance where they're attempting to make this land bridge. This will give Iran access to Syria, and the Bible says that Syria, Iran, and Russia, that Iran, Russia, and Turkey will invade Israel at the Battle of Armageddon, and they will come down from the north. The Syrian border is the northern border of Israel. So everything is fitting together. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let anything convince you that this is not the end time. I'm telling you, there are more prophecies being fulfilled right now than have ever been fulfilled in a period of time like this time. So don't go to sleep at the wheel. This is going to be the church's finest hour. We're going to see revival like you never saw. Only, though, if we understand the prophecies and have the ability to explain them so that the people of our world can know that they, in fact, are the end-time generation. We have one more story that bears out that we are in the end time. The end time is now. And that is preparing for 666. Let me see if I can bring this story to you. Here's what's happening. Thousands of Swedes are inserting microchips into themselves. They're having a small chip about the size of a grain of rice injected with a needle under their skin, and they're using it to open doors. They're using it to get on the public transportation of Sweden. They're using it to access their computers. Now, why does this alarm us? Well, Sweden is the leader of the world in moving toward a cashless society. They have 1,600 banks in Sweden. Out of those banks, 900 of them have no money. No money. You cannot make a cash deposit there. You cannot get any cash there because Sweden is going cashless. Well, beyond that, they're now, many of them, thousands of them, are accepting this computer chip under the skin so they don't have to carry a credit card. They don't have to carry a driver's license. Everything is right there on their hand. You remember in the Bible, the prophecy that talks about a time coming when everyone will have a mark in their hand or in their forehead, and they'll use that mark to buy and to sell. They'll use that for identification. Now, here's the haunting thing about it. The Bible also says that in order for that mark to be validated, you will have to pledge allegiance to the one world government of the Antichrist. And remember, Sweden is in Europe, and that's going to be the power base of the Antichrist. So what am I telling you? I am telling you, the Bible says in one place that men would say, all things remain the same as they were in the days of our fathers. The Lord has delayed his coming. But the Lord has not delayed his coming. There's one reason why he has not come back yet. It hasn't been time yet. We are marching straight toward the second coming of Jesus Christ right now. And that's the reason all of us need to be ready. Preparing for the second coming should be your number one priority. Not your second, not your third, not your fourth. It should be your number one priority. We want to help you with that.